Hello, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam, and I'm doing a quick little clip at noon before my next business call starts because I seem to be on quite a roll here with my videos. And so this is a bit of an interlude because yesterday I published a little video explaining why it is difficult to realize the self. It got me to thinking how when we talk about many of these topics about self-realization or expanding of consciousness and things of that kind, the language that we use to describe these things can very quickly become quite esoteric, and we enter this sort of rarefied field of weird talk and very strange things. So I wanted to read something to you from, it's a very small passage from a great little book, which is The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. And the book is essentially a description of his experience taking peyote, or as we would say in Spanish, peyote, right? And so when you take peyote, you have very interesting experiences apparently. And I thought the way he described it was very close to what I've experienced with psilocybin. He describes how he became entranced by looking at a chair or something like that. And he says, I was seeing what Adam, as in Adam and Eve, had seen in the morning of his creation, the miracle moment by moment of naked existence. And he talks about how in that experience he becomes what the Vedantic text would call being consciousness bliss, or Sat Chit Ananda. He also calls it the beatific vision, right? So all these saints talk about like how they've seen God, and they rave about like the clarity and the beauty and the love and the bliss that they experience during that vision. And so that's what Sat Chit Ananda stands for. And he claims, and I believe him because it's very similar to the psilocybin experience, that he had the beatific vision. He says, for the first time I understood, not on a verbal level, not by inchoate hints or at a distance, but precisely and completely what those prodigious syllables of Sat Chit Ananda refer to. Everything was intrinsically meaningful. And everything seemed to be glowing with living light. That's how he describes it, and that is how you perceive things under certain substances. Now, the reason I start with this is because when you consume consciousness-enhancing substances like psilocybin or peyote, you start to experience this. And it's a very, very deeply meaningful experience, right? And so we talk about enhancing consciousness, and we talk about how yoga is a discipline, and meditation, or certain types of coaching, especially body work, can get you to enhance your consciousness, right? And so consciousness enhancement becomes like this very nebulous idea, and people start to talk in a certain way about it, right? And they're all mystical. But if you think about it, let me put this on mute for a moment, lest it annoys the hell out of us. If you really consider it, and if I bring it down to some of the practices that I'm engaging in, especially for example the practice of Tai Chi, enhancing your consciousness is a very mundane and very simple thing. It's very simple, and it is like this: you make a conscious effort, you make a consistent, a systematic effort to perceive more. Okay. And it's simply that, right? So for example, if you say rub one finger against another, if you ask somebody who's never done that, it was okay. So how does that feel? They'll tell you, oh, it feels like a little bit of friction going on, right? Or I had this experience with my dad the other day. I said, how about you try to feel the soles of your feet? And he says, and I said, what do you feel? He's like, yeah, I don't know. I just, I kind of feel like, they're there, let's say. But if you then start to go deeply into the sensation, then you will feel that there is pressure on the soles of the feet coming from the weight of the leg pressing down on the foot. There is also a sensation of texture from the sock, from your socks, right? There is also a sensation of temperature. There might be warmth or cold. And then there is also simply this living sensation of the presence of this knowing quality of the fact that you have soles of feet and that they're there and that they're alive. And that might be a bit of waves or pins and needles on things of that kind. So, so what you've done there is you've enhanced your consciousness. Yeah, it sounds very simple, but yeah, that's all really there is to it, right? Enhancing your consciousness is just the ability to, your perception is going through a funnel, and then you're widening that funnel, and then you are going also deeper into it, so that your experiences become broader, deeper, and richer, and you can essentially perceive more. Okay. And so Huxley has some interesting take about it, because, so listen to this, right? So he's having this amazing experience with the peyote. And so he says, so he comes up with something that he heard from a Cambridge professor. And he says, the function of the brain and the nervous system and sense organs is in the main eliminative and not productive. Each person is at each moment capable of remembering all that has ever happened to him or her, and of perceiving everything that is happening everywhere in the universe. It's quite a claim, but okay. The function of the brain and nervous system is to protect us from being overwhelmed. Each of us is potentially mind at large. To make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled. Funneled, you remember we talked about narrowing things down. Funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. What comes out at the other end is a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive on the surface of this particular planet. Then he goes on to talk about how language is part of the things that help narrow that funnel down, and therefore people who are very entrenched in their ideas and their identity have a very narrow funnel. That's what closed-mindedness is, if we are strictly speaking. So in essence, that's what it comes down to. So now here's the also the interesting part about this is that when you're growing up as a child, you need that funnel to be narrow, so that your mental and physical integrity have a scaffolding that is strong and that can help you survive and interact in the world, right? So you narrow the funnel for that purpose. Now, in society, we don't know that we're narrowing the funnel. We do this unconsciously to go like, oh, you need to go to school, you need to learn about this, you know, this is how this works, this is how that works. And so we are narrowing that funnel, except that we don't know that we are narrowing it. We just think this is the way to do things, this is what it is, this is what you should know about. And so we narrow that funnel. Once that funnel has been narrowed and the scaffolding for the person has been created, and that person can interact correctly with the world, they have good personal integrity, good boundaries, they understand their physical environment. The very next thing needs to happen is you need to shed that scaffolding, and you need to start working on broadening the funnel back up again. Now, most people are great at narrowing the funnel. Some of them are not even great at that, actually. Like there's a bunch of, I think I've used the expression loser before. There's people who are, let's put it mildly, functioning at a lower level in this world. Okay, they can't hold a job. They're physically unhealthy. Their social interactions are not as good as they could be. So they weren't even good at narrowing the funnel. It gets even worse because some of them start to toy around with spiritual ideas, and they don't even have the personal integrity to hold that stuff. Okay, so narrowing the funnel is useful and it has to happen, and you better do it right. So we work on that. But so that's where society typically stops. And then we talk about the process of self-realization and individuation, which is to say, okay, that old narrowing stuff was great, I get it. I can slip in and out of that narrow funnel whenever I need to, but now my job is to broaden the funnel as deeply and widely as I possibly can, so that I eventually become mind at large indeed, so that I am able to perceive the whole and my unity with it. Because unless I am able to do that, being a narrow funnel just doesn't feel very nice. It's a very unsatisfying experience. So you are highly functional, but just not particularly joyful. Again, going back to being consciousness bliss, the Satchit Ananda of the Vedas. Satchit Ananda, being consciousness bliss, is what you are, except that all the ideas that you have when you're a narrow funnel don't allow you to realize that. Hence, you are constantly looking for things to satisfy you. So you broaden the funnel in order to understand or to come to the realization that you are being consciousness bliss, Satchit Ananda. And eventually you aim to become mind at large while remaining functional in the world. I don't know if those two can be held at the same time. There is something to be said about experiences when your consciousness becomes very, very enhanced. And I would claim, as do other books such as Levels of Energy, for example, or Power versus Force, there is a scale of consciousness. And beyond a certain point, you are enormously blissful and perceptive, but it might not be the best time to do your tax report, right? So those things might become incompatible at some point. But the ability to go upwards in the scale and to remain at a very healthy level is, of course, what you want to aim for. So that was today's video. I hope it clarifies a few things. It also brings the Doors of Perception as a book into our talks here. Maybe I'll do some more quote mining, because I think it's a really cool book actually, and I can relate to much of what it says and talks about. And yeah, that was I guess not so related to meditation, although meditation is a practice that eventually gets you to levels of consciousness that are extremely high without the need for consciousness enhancing substances. So it is relevant in that sense. And so I hope that helps. Have a good one. Cheers.